Hey, this is Bruce, aka Frugal Tech. Thanks for watching. I always appreciate it when you +1 share, like our video, and comment down below. I get a lot of questions about my audio gear, and so I thought I'd make a video today, kind of talk a little bit about what I bought, what I use it for, what it kind of costs, and I thought that I would share that with you because audio is really, really important. And when you're making YouTube videos, you can have, even, I think people will tolerate video problems more than they will audio problems. But the gear that I bought was bought mostly to make podcasts. And I have to be very honest with you and say that I'm not an audio expert. And what I bought was based on spending a lot of time and doing a lot of research on, Google, Amazon, different music related websites, talking to podcasters and reading forums. That's kind of where I got all of my information from. I think I assembled a pretty good, some pretty good components. I'll tell you, none of it is the best because I had a very tight budget. Overall, I have maybe a little over $1,000 invested in it. And as I said, I purchased it mostly to do podcasts, but I do use some of it in making my videos. So I just thought I would kind of share these items and, like I said, kind of discuss with you what they are, what they cost, and a little bit more information about them. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, the first piece of gear, and I think the most important part, is going to be your microphone. And this is the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 dynamic microphone. And the benefit of a dynamic mic is that they tend to reject a lot of background noise, like fans and that kind of thing. And this is a pattern to it called a cardioid polar pattern. So it rejects sound more to the sides and to the rear. And when I bought this, it was only about $35. But today they're about $60. And I think that's because a lot of podcasters have been buying these up really, really quickly. The cool thing about these mics is not only are they XLR, but they also have a USB connection on them as well in the back. So that's really, really nice. But I think the main thing is the particular sound quality of these mics pair very favorably with the Heil PR40. So when I bought mine, they were like $35. Now they're about $60. And by the way, I'll have a link to everything I'm talking about on Amazon. This shock mount with the windscreen right here, I don't recall, I only paid like around $11 or $12 for it. I don't have a link for it, but I found it on schoolofpodcasting.com, and that's really, really a nice little pop filter here, and kind of hooks up through a little wire here that goes underneath the shock mount. These mics are amazing, these ATR 2100s. Leo Laporte uses the Heil PR40, which is like 10 times the price. Well, no, they're about $350 roughly. And he did some tests, and even he was pretty hard pressed to tell the difference between the ATR 2100 and the Heil PR40. Speaking of Heil, I have this boom stand here. It's called the PL2T Overhead Broadcast Boom. Now, these sell for about $120. I like it. I think you can get, for most people, this is probably overkill, but it stretches out about 30 inches or so when it's fully extended. It comes with a C-clamp, but you can get an optional desk flange or a wall mount for it. Very, very nice boom arm. I don't think for most people that you need to spend quite a bit as much money on one of these. I think you can probably get by with something a little bit less expensive, but they are quite nice. And I always wanted to have a piece of Heil gear. Well, that was kind of my indulgence on that. So that was around $120. I have a link to Amazon that if you want to look at the boom as well. So this is, I think, capturing great sound to begin with is really, really important. So the next on the list is, and this is kind of the heartbeat of the sound system, and this is your mixer. And this is the Behringer Xenix X1622 USB mixer. and allows you to connect it via USB to your computer so you can use audio editing software like Audacity or Audition, whatever you want to do. Now, this has up to 16 inputs. There's 4 inputs here for things like XLR microphones, or if you want to hook a guitar or whatever up to it, you can do that there. And then you also have 1/4 inch. You got 4 XLR connections, 4 1/4 inch. Well, actually, you have more than that. You have a total of 8 1/4 inch inputs. By the way, these are phantom power, and phantom power allows you to use what's called a condenser microphone, one that requires phantom power. Here's all your sliders. And then you have 2 aux sends. So that's important if you were like using this mixer or mixer for things like Skype. You were doing live streaming, you want to bring guests in. You want to send audio back to people. Well, that's what you're going to use aux sends for. It has a digital effects on there, which I never use. It has the ability to add subgroups, which is really more than I've ever done with the mixer. The main thing is you get clean sound, you get clean amplification. It does have a built-in compressor up here. It does have some equalization as well as the ability to control your low frequencies, your mids, and your highs. I never really use those so much. I tend to leave those in their standard configuration. Your level controls, I tend to record at -6 dB, but you might use something different. I actually started with a cheaper model, but I went to this model because it has what's called channel inserts, and channel inserts lets you add external signal processors that we're going to talk about next. But you can find these for right around $230 or so on Amazon. You might even get a better deal somewhere else. But the bottom line is, if you get a mixer and you want to add external signal processing, you want to get a mixer that has what's called channel inserts on it. Okay, the next piece of gear that I have is the Behringer Multicom Pro XL4600. What this thing is a noise gate, a limiter, and compressor, and it's set up for 4 channels, so you can plug 4 different inputs into this thing. And essentially, what it does is a noise gate is you can, when you have things like fans or you're not talking, it will close off the inputs from the microphones or the inputs if the noise is below or above a certain level or below a certain level. It'll just cut that off so you don't hear anything but silence in between. That's what a noise gate does. The limiter function down here. So if somebody were talking in a mic and all of a sudden they got really, really loud very quickly, they yelled or sneezed or whatever, that would keep the audio from peaking. It actually limits how high it can go. So that's what the limiter does. The compressor function down here. So that, if you can think of a compressor as something like an auto leveling system where your listeners don't have to chase that volume control, that's what it's for. Now, I do all my audio compression in post via software rather than doing it in hardware. But that's real handy if you're doing, say, live streaming. That might be real handy. So if you're using this in live events, you'd probably want to use the compressor, especially with vocals. When you have people talking very softly and their voice kind of, deviates a little bit up or down, that's what you'd want to use that for. Really, what I use this for is 2 functions, the noise gate and the limiter. And like I said, I do compression in post. Right now on mine, channel 3 is not really working too well. It works, but I'm getting some noise. Now, all these pots on here, you have to clean those occasionally. This is around $150 on Amazon. If I had it to do over again, I would not buy this unit. I would have went with the DBX286. But because I was on a budget, this is what I ended up with. It's not terrible, but there is a learning curve to using one of these properly. I think you just want to start off using it as a limiter and maybe as a noise gate. and then kind of learn your way around things like compression. Because, you know, like soup, if you're cooking soup, too much salt will spoil the soup. Too much compression will ruin the sound of audio. But all in all, for 150 bucks, it's not a bad deal, actually. Okay, so next on the list is my MAudio Studio AV40 studio monitors. Now the thing is, when you know when you're editing a podcast or you're editing audio, if you use regular computer speakers, or even if you use a lot of different headphones, you're going to get some nuance to the sound that's just, you know, not actually what was recorded. You know, the treble might be a little brighter, the bass might be a little kickier. What you really are looking for is the flattest possible frequency response. Now, so that's why a lot of people recommend getting studio monitors, and they come in, you know, all kinds of price ranges. And I was looking for something very basic, and these turned out to be about the best deal I've found. And these sell for in the neighborhood of $150. They come with a 4-inch woofer. Down here, there's a 4-inch woofer, and then you have a 1-inch tweeter, which actually these have an amazingly good sound. You can use them as a computer speaker. You can use them if you want that way. This has a 20-watt built-in power amplifier, so you do have to have a power supply. It will plug into your computer. They do have an adapter to plug into your mixer. So altogether, it does have magnetic shielding as well. So you don't have to worry about any type of interference on that. You can obviously spend a whole lot more money. You know, there's Rocket and there's a number of different monitors out there, way more expensive. I actually bought this foam padding that these are resting on separately for a few bucks. Highly recommended, because that way you're not getting any vibration. But good studio monitors really, really make a big difference when you're editing your audio on there. Now, there is one set of headphones that if you are doing some serious monitoring, say you're monitoring audio when you're recording video, you can use these, of course, with your computer, provided everything is supported on there as far as the impedance. Or you can even use them to edit audio, but they are a little bit tight on the bass. But a lot of people swear by the Sony MD7506 headphones. And these are basically an over-the-ear headphone. So they're fairly comfortable for a while. They do get uncomfortable after an hour or two. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me. I don't use them a lot, but when we're recording our podcast, I'll put these on so I can listen to my wife and she can listen to me. But you could edit audio, but just understand, I think there's going to be a little bit of, with the bass, it's going to sound maybe a little bit punchy on these. But a lot of people swear by this particular model. They're available for around $99. Now, the final piece of gear is, of course, capturing all your audio that's coming out of your mics and your mixer. And when you're recording, especially podcast, and you've got guests, you know, on Skype or whatever, you don't really want to take a risk of losing that interview, because most people will record directly to their computer. And the problem is, of course, a computer can crash and software can freeze, and then you've lost all that. So that's why I bought a Roland R05 Studio Wave Recorder. And this does record either WAV files or MP3 format. It's actually quite light. It has a built-in condenser microphone on the top. And it has a 3.5 millimeter audio input, which I run from the mixer. You can also have an output on there as well that you can, you know, run into another source. You can actually plug a mic into it as well. And it captures on an SD card in the back. It has an auto level control built onto it with an SD card slot. It does not come with an AC adapter. It's $199. You have to buy the AC adapter. It really does have very good battery life. And then also, this actual condenser microphone does a nice job picking up sound as well. You could actually plug this in and record separately and sync up your audio with video, which is what a lot of people do. I don't, but some people do. Now, if I had my chance to do this thing over again, I probably wouldn't have went with this unit. I probably would have went with the Zoom H4n because of allowing you to use different microphone inputs. This doesn't. It also has a mini USB adapter and a headphone jack on there as well. It's actually quite nice, and it's really a good idea when you're recording sound to capture on a digital recorder as opposed to going directly into your computer, or at least do both at the same time. So that's kind of an overlook of all the audio gear that I use for creating podcasts, and some of this I do use with creating videos. And as I said, I've got a little over $1,000 invested in this stuff. It's not the best quality gear. I'm not an audio expert, but if you're on a budget and you want a nice audio studio, recording studio, this is actually not bad stuff, and it's pretty affordable. And so far, all this gear has been proven to be pretty reliable, but some people kind of squeamish about the name Behringer, for example, but I've had really good luck with it. So yeah, that's it. That's my audio setup. Thanks so much for watching, and appreciate your comments.